Congratulations, you finally got invited to a pharmacy residency interview. Now it's time to seal the deal, but your confidence is lacking because your nerves are getting in the way. Don't feel bad, it happens to the best of us. That's why in today's video, I'll be sharing with you a few tips that I use to help me get more confident during my pharmacy residency interviews. And I'm sharing a few pro tips that I learned from a few program directors and job recruiters. Hi, I'm Dr. K and welcome to my channel where I help you live your best life by sharing advice and tips to help you grow personally so you can thrive professionally. When it comes to your pharmacy residency interviews, confidence is one of the largest pieces of the puzzles. If you don't have confidence, it's very likely that you won't be able to clearly articulate yourself well and build a connection with the interviewer. So how do you show up on interview day with more confidence? The first tip I have is to shift your mindset. You have to believe that you're qualified to be there. And I know for me, as time went on, this was one of the biggest hurdles that I had because after years of not matching, the reality is my confidence was struggling. Each year, I felt more and more defeated and I really was lacking confidence. But until I decided to put more focus on me and what I bring to the table and making sure that I was the best candidate possible, I did continue to struggle in the interviews because I was more focused on the fact that I didn't match the year prior. And now I'm here going up against current fourth year students that may be more clinically sharp than I am because I've been out of school X amount of time. My focus was all wrong. I had to shift my mindset and focus on myself, why I was there and what I brought to the table, regardless of how many failures I had prior or anyone else that I was coming up against. The second tip I have is to be prepared. The more prepared you are, the less nerves get in the way and the more that your confidence can shine through. And when I say be prepared, I mean doing your research on the organization, doing your research on the people who will be interviewing you, making sure that you get on site early enough to know where you're supposed to be, of course, if you're having an on-site interview this year. The goal is to be as prepared as possible because not being prepared in itself brings anxiety and stress. And so that can affect your confidence. Tip number 3 I have to help you with your confidence is to practice. Do mock interviews, do sample questions, watch videos like what you're watching now. Do everything that you can to make sure that you are prepared and that you actually practice answering questions. And when I say practice, I really do emphasize the importance of actually verbally speaking and answering questions. Whether you are standing in the bathroom mirror answering questions, or you do a voice recording of yourself answering questions, or you pull out the camera and you record yourself, get on a Zoom call with someone and do a mock interview, whatever it takes, make sure that you practice actually verbally speaking and answering those questions. I know for me, in the past, I have prepared for interviews simply by working through example questions, reading them, coming through the answers in my head, but I never actually verbally spoke them. So when it came to interview time and I have to now actually verbally speak them, there was a bit of a divide. Like I could think in my head everything that I wanted to say, but things weren't coming out clearly because I hadn't practiced actually speaking them. Plus, once you record yourself, whether it's audio or visual or both, you really get to see what you sound like. And I know for me, the first time I did it, I was like, okay, like I thought I sound good, but I sound like I'm rambling and that's not cute. So you really want to make sure you have something that you can look back on to critique yourself, but then also have others critique you if you have the opportunity to do so. The key here is making sure that you practice and put yourself in a real life setting as much as possible. The fourth tip I have is to have examples and many of them. Specifically when it comes to the behavioral based questions and the tell me about a time when, you want to make sure that you have multiple examples to pull from. The last thing you want to do is to answer a question and you feel like you nailed it and then you have another question that's not very different that you could have used the same answer for, now you don't have one. Or you may answer a question and think you did amazing and they may say, okay, well, give me another example. Do you have another example? And then you're stuck. All of those moments where you're not prepared, that makes your confidence dwindle, that brings anxiety up, and then now you aren't able to present yourself in the best way. So have as many examples as possible. What I would suggest is thinking through the type of questions that you will be asked. So categories, for example. You know that you're going to be asked about time management. You know that at some point you're going to be asked about your leadership and why you want to do residency. So have many examples to emphasize and answer those types of questions in those categories so you won't get caught off guard with not having an answer to a question. The fifth tip I have is to get out of your head. Stop stressing yourself out, replaying situations that have not happened yet, and just overthinking things. Yes, you want this residency. It's something that you want very bad. You've worked very hard to get where you are right now, and that's the next step. So you want it to happen. I get it, trust me. I do. But you don't want to put so much pressure on yourself where you make the situation bigger than it has to be. Although you would love to match the first time, the reality is if you don't, it is not the end of the world. So really don't put so much pressure on yourself where you create this anxious situation, you're stressed out, and you can't go in with the confidence that you need and to articulate yourself well and to show them why you are the best candidate. So really don't sabotage yourself by overthinking it and overstressing the situation. I know it's easier said than done because I am the stressor of all stressors, but take my advice. I did that to myself and I got nowhere. So really just calm down, show up, and just be you. And the last tip I have is don't feel forced to be someone you're not. I know interviews, you have to present yourself in the best way. You want to be professional and polished and articulate and all of those things, which you should do. But don't feel like you have to show up and put on a facade or be someone that you're not, because number one, it's too stressful. It may be very obvious that you're not being yourself, and it prevents you from really connecting with people. In an interview, the goal is to connect and to show why you are the best person to be there. And if you're so focused on being prim and proper and the professional, upright, perfect person, they're not getting to see you. And people can tell when you're being fake or when you're not, when you're holding back, or when there's a gap or a divide there. So really just try to be mindful of that. Yes, you want to present yourself in the best way. You do need to be professional. You do need to be articulate. You do need to make sure that you're smiling and present yourself well, but don't feel like you have to be someone you're not, because number one, if you match there, you're going to show up being you, and you don't want there to be a huge gap there. Also, if you do match and you feel the need to continue doing that, that's a lot of pressure. Life is hard enough, residency is hard enough, and the last thing that you want to do is feel this pressure to show up being someone that you're not for a whole year just because you had on a huge facade doing your interview. All right, good people, that is it for the video today. I hope that you found these tips on being more confident during your pharmacy residency interviews useful. If so, please make sure you give me a thumbs up and share the video with someone else that may find the information useful. And if you like the content here on the channel, please make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss out when I upload new videos. Check out the playlist where you'll find other helpful tips for pharmacy residency interviews and the application process in general. And keep an eye out for next week's video as I share more tips to help you guys prepare for your interviews. Until next time, peace.